Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both, may that one nourish us both. May we work together with great vigor and energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. The subject of tonight's talk is how to be a yogi, or the riches of yoga. And talking with a group here, I was mentioning a few things about the process of yoga, what it means, and hatha yoga. Because most people begin yoga practice with the idea that we have to do something physical, and people are familiar with such concepts as pranayama and other things, and purifying the body and various things like that, without actually knowing what is yoga, what is the purpose of it. So I pointed out here that the term yoga simply means union. Union between what? It's assumed that we are a separate entity and we all desire to be one with everything, and that manifests in social life. We want to be sociable, we want to be part of a society, and it ends in relationships, partnerships, and we always want to be one in every single sense of the word. It represents freedom for us. So how do we go about doing this, and what constitutes a yogi? So let us understand this term yoga and the whole idea that we seem to be separated and looking for some unity somewhere, but we are surrounded by a working, waking life that has many obstacles. How to make something practical, advance our life toward an inner urge for perfection and manifest it from within. Swami Vivekananda puts it very succinctly in his Raja Yoga. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this from within, controlling nature, internal and external. He says, do this by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, one or more or all of these, and be free. Temples, churches, rituals, books, doctrines, dogmas are but secondary details. And so, in a summary form, we have the whole thrust and purpose of our life. Of course, there are temporary purposes in our life also. Career purposes, career goals, study goals, all of these are no doubt goals. Goals to get a new house or apartment, or a little bit more wealth. All of these are goals. But they only last a small period of time, and in the lifespan of a human, very insignificant, and in the lifespan of a whole universe, nothing whatsoever. So we have to put things in a little bit of a context. I was pointing out earlier that the two primary textbooks are Patanjali Yoga Sutras on the philosophy of yoga, and of course the longest philosophical poem in the world, the Bhagavad Gita. And there, yoga has 18 divisions. How many yogas are there in that Bhagavad Gita? 18 of them. Each chapter is described as a yoga. Where is the starting point? The starting point is despondency. From time to time, everybody has a dip in the emotions. Everybody has periods of depression. Everybody has difficulties and wondered how can we surmount these and get around them. There has to be some workable formula. The so-called normal formula is to take this world seriously and try to attack it or run away from it. These are the various strategies. or just to stand and do nothing, be mesmerized by it. But there is another more useful way. We can take a long-term purpose and focus on that. Why am I born? And why am I born as an individual? With children, I often ask them, please, do you have these things, these ridges on your fingers called fingerprints? And they all look at that. They maybe have to do hand painting to find it out. But the thing is, every fingerprint is individual. Your fingerprints were never seen before you were born. When you die, they'll never be seen again. It's a mark of your individuality. If you want to be more scientific about it, your DNA is yours. There's something that you can do, nobody else can do, and this potential has to be uncoiled within you. The yogis call this coiled condition, exactly that, coiled, kundali, and the one that uncoils is called kundalini. So some potential is in you that has to unfold. Some personal evolution has to take place. And the process of doing this is called yoga, union, the process of uniting, and also represents the goal of it, the actual united position, where the seeming individual becomes one. So these various processes, somebody mentioned fourfold, quite right, because there are four aspects to the mind. We all have a feeling aspect, we all have a thinking aspect, we have a willing and doing aspect, and a harmonizing aspect. These are called yogas. Respectively, the affections are steered toward higher spiritual sentiments. This is called bhakti yoga, non-demanding love for some supreme entity. And karma yoga is one suited to most people. That is, to use all your willing energy or your willing power to be active without disturbing the equilibrium of the mind. Why should we want to disturb the equilibrium of the mind, or why should we want to make it peaceful? According to yoga philosophy, the mind is something like a substance. We can compare it to a lake that is constantly in the state of disturbance. How to calm the waves that operate within the mind, or the mind stuff? These waves are called vrittis. Literally, they're called vortexes or whirlpools. You can imagine a lake with all kinds of undercurrents, whirlpools, waves that go up and down, with the result that you can't see the bottom of the lake. You don't know what's at the bottom because there's a lack of clarity. So the means is to clarify the mind, and all of these approaches are designed to do that. What is the goal of any of these yogas? To purify our understanding and clarify the mind so that we have a better vision of what the truth and reality is underneath everything. If you compare it using the analogy of the lake again, how to calm these disturbances and waves in the mind. The Sankhya philosophy that everybody agrees on, all schools agree on it, tell us about the geography of the mind. And so, the mind is no different from any other aspect of nature. It has three aspects to it. These three aspects are technically called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Tamas, from a psychological point of view, means that we can be in a state of laziness, inertia. I'm sure you've all experienced it from time to time. You know what the maximum sleep is that's required? 5 minutes more. Always 5 minutes more, especially in winter. 5 minutes more. Give me 5 minutes more. All right. So we have this condition from time to time of laziness, dullness, lack of enthusiasm. This is all caused by this element, inertia. Do we find this in physics as well? Yes. It's a principle called inertia. When you get in a car, it's not moving, You have to force it to move. It doesn't want to move. You have to put extra effort into it. You have to mobilize it. Then when it moves, it doesn't want to stop. You have to put brakes. This is the same throughout the whole of nature, and the mind is simply a subtle variety of nature itself. The next component will be rajas, and rajas will have this effect of being egocentric, selfish. Everyone's a go-getter. So I often make a story about that. Supposing you're attending a sports stadium and you want to see a soccer match, but unfortunately you're only 5 foot and everyone else is 6 foot. So you have a technique, you jostle everybody, elbow, elbow, move quickly, dart to the front. Before you know what's happening, everybody's looking around, who did this, who did this? And everybody now says, oh, this fellow, 1,000,000 blows come on me. The result of rajas is pain. The result of tamas is pain. Because tamas literally means darkness. That is ignorance, a form of dullness. The opposite of it is rajas, a state of heightened activity that puts us in an agitated mode and makes us future-orientated as well. And the problem with being future orientation is it gives us anxiety. So how to neutralize these waves that have the effect of disturbing our clarity of vision? We have to promote another wave. This is called sattva, waves of illumination. The characteristic is there is no egocentricity in it. It's all an openness, a feeling of generosity for everybody, a concern for the totality. So if we say, let's all have tea, and I say, oh, and me, that's absurd because let's all have tea means it includes me. I don't exclude me. So an all-inclusive formula that has the welfare of all beings, a sense of generosity that we seldom find in the world, and its characteristic is illumination, with all the noble qualities of strength and truth and beauty and love and harmony and goodness and so on, all of those things. And how do we promote that? Exactly as I've just said it. Because thought comes momentarily in units of seconds, each second being a blank check, never been used before, and we have the luxury of putting something we can choose inside it. This is called control. Playing a game like that with a sporting attitude, we then settle everything down on the unconscious level. It becomes the habit level, settling it down there, reforming our habit so that we can go through life with a different reaction, a different perspective, one which is highly positive. In that way, we can be a shining light that shares our light with the entire world. Such lights have been present, such lights are present now, such lights will be present in the future. Let us be a shining light, not for our own benefit. That would be a shrinking thing. Flowers don't have shrinking characteristic. They're generous enough to open up and say, I don't care who you are, I can share my scent with you. I can share my fragrance with you, I can share my beauty with you. I can share it no matter who you are, I don't care, indiscriminately. But a flower grows from where? From manure. And manure doesn't become the guru and say, you should be exactly like me, please. The flower will turn around and say, revered Guru, I respect you deeply. It was you that provided me with nourishment. But unfortunately, I think my smell is better. Let me continue my way, thank you. So in this way, we can be an opening thing. Egocentricity and selfish is a closing thing. It makes us go inward. It makes us a kind of Scrooge. We become mean-minded, and the result is a painful situation for ourselves. So how to get out of that pain? The whole of the yoga endeavor is to get out of pain. So yoga is defined in the Bhagavad Gita as being Vishada yoga, that is, the disconnection with pain. How to disconnect pain. Now, all of us have gone through pain. There's no human that has not gone through pain. Some of us have pain now, maybe in the knees or something from sitting, but definitely we'll all have pain in the future, no question. It's the rent we have to pay for a body. So the body is a vehicle that enables us toward perfection, and the mind is also a vehicle that enables us toward perfection. The two together, psychophysical, is the vehicle we have, and we have to look after it. So how to control the mind means how to clarify things, how to promote these illuminating aspects. And in so doing, we neutralize all the waves. When the sattva wave comes, it neutralizes these deleterious waves that stop us from the clarity that sits at the bottom of the mind. In promoting this, we need certain controls. This collectively is called yama. It comprises firstly of non-injury, ahimsa. So that means non-injury in thought, word, and deed. It's a high moral precept, very difficult to live up to, because you may say, I'm a good person, I never murdered anybody. All right, but did you think about murdering your boss and poisoning the coffee? Oh yes, from time to time. All right, okay, that's not consistent with ahimsa. So even thinking about it, every thought leads to an action anyway. Not that you'll actually go and murder somebody, but you know if you do, then you'll be arrested and spend a life sentence or something. So society puts these prohibitions, but if you're truthful and absolutely want non-injury, you won't even think about it. Now that's a negative term. What is the positive side of it? The positive side is love, unconditional, non-demanding love. That is a rare thing. Swami Vivekananda, who really in 1893 spoke at the Parliament of Religions, and without him, I doubt if we'd know anything about yoga or anything else. They brought it first to the West. So he gives us 3 angles of a triangle as a definition of love. Love has no fear, no rival, no reward. What a wonderful concept. You can apply that everywhere. If you apply that in your personal life, in personal relationships, there'd be no fear in the relationship. There'd be no envy because there's no rivalry. And there'd be no reward because human love is a bargaining process. I love you if you love me. If you don't love me, I hate you. That's the normal system. Non-demanding love is beyond genetic love. Every animal can have genetic love. But real love is without restriction for all beings, not just humanity, even animals, all beings, even animals, even plants, everything. All beings, because they are seen to be variations, manifestations, fragments of one entity. So that when you injure somebody or something, with the idea of unity, you know that you are injuring yourself. So the golden rule that everybody has says, do unto others as they would have do unto you. It's an imperfect law, and it doesn't tell you why you should not do harm to others. If it serves your purpose, why not? That's called consequentialism in philosophy. Anyhow, it's because if there's one unity, if there's only one thing, it's like your left hand punching your right hand. Your right hand looks at your left hand and starts becoming a little jealous. I think the owner of these 2 hands is favoring the left hand. In the night, let me get up and let me stab it. See, we don't do that. So if everything is understood to be one, you're only harming yourself. Second principle is truthfulness. Your thought, your word, and your deed have to match. And the ultimate truthfulness is to say that this universe, when we analyze it correctly, is really only apparitional. When you look at it closely, it's full of changes. It comes, it goes in an instant. This is true also not only in the yoga philosophy, but in Buddhism also. Life is a flux. It comes up, it goes up, but the only difference is the yogis say somebody's noticing it. In order to understand all these changes, there must be some non-changing entity that doesn't go with the changes. Otherwise, how will I observe it? That entity, that unity of vision, that witness, I have to understand and discover. It is already there, because nobody says I'm non-existent. Everybody says I exist. Next question is, well, what is that? Who are you? So we have to find that out. That's the path of discovery that all of us have to go on, whether we know it or not. So know thyself is the great dictum that is used everywhere, this Greek dictum, know thyself. Now, truthfulness and non-injury, these are tricky subjects. How can you do both? I'll give you an example. Supposing your wife says, do I look fat in this? Then what will you say? Okay, so you have to decide what to say. Whether you want to be truthful or whether you want to, make somebody who is a little vulnerable, squeeze them or something like that. Best is to keep quiet, actually. And in advancing years, you have a great benefit because your hearing goes, or you can simulate that your hearing is gone, so you get out of the difficulty. Truthfulness means something deeper, though. It means I understand that thing which never changes. And when I look at life, it's not like that. It's not that. So this is called philosophically Jagat. The ancient sages understood that this whole universe is called Jagat, the thing that always constantly changing. Now all this world, there's no death whatsoever. You can't give me any example of anything that dies, only something that changes. So I give the funny example, you'll be laughing already, that if you say the Swami here will die sometime, preferably not here in your premises, and so we'll bury him. All right, the body is dead. That means it's gone into a state of entropy, a state of dissembled chaos. Everything that's assembled has to dissemble, but it becomes life and energy for maggots and worms. Maggots and worms provide nutrients in the soil, nitrogen and so on, aerate the soil nicely. You can plant potatoes there, you munch and crunch on the potatoes. You have no idea you're eating the Swami. So there's nothing really that dies. There's only transformation. The sum total of energy and matter is always the same. All right. That's transformational causation. Technically, we call this in philosophy parinama. But there's another kind of causation. This is called vivarta, apparitional causation. Things are not quite what they seem. And modern science has discovered that this is so. Things are not what they seem to be. And we find this at the very, very subtlest of all levels. And physics calls this quantum mechanics. That is, things look like surges of units called quanta. But when we look at it closely, where they are and how fast they're traveling creates uncertainty. It's called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. This is an equation of what we call Maya in yoga philosophy. Maya is a paradox. It seems to be permanent, it's not. In a desert, there seems to be palm trees and water in abundance, but when we look closely, it's all gone. It's called a mirage. And so what science is studying is the mirage of existence, which when you examine it closely, all disintegrates. It's not what you think. So in discovering the truth, you have to discover the truth of the thing that never changes in you. Because the ancient philosophers stood there and inquired, I exist, what is that? It is that thing that never changes, everything else changes. How will I inquire about it? Meditation, using a different approach, looking at things in a revalued way, not in the usual way. Change your wiring so you see things in a different way, revalue everything. And you do it in an artistic, creative way, using all the tools at your disposal: imagination, creativity, thinking differently, trying to solve a problem from an unusual way. 20 problems there, you may have 20 solutions, and the suitable one will arrive when the mind is not specifically occupied, brushing the teeth, walking, driving, shopping, whatever it is. All right, so this is called truthfulness. Non-stealing is there also. Non-stealing is very subtle. It's not, you shouldn't steal bread or something like that. You shouldn't shoplift. No, it's not that kind of stealing. Of course, that is morally wrong as well, but stealing means taking ownership for what does not belong to you. You're not running on your own energy. You're running on cosmic energy. And all your energy is borrowed from the sun. You're running around on bottled sunshine. Don't think that anything is yours. You hear this phrase, it's my body, I can do what I like with you. Who said it's your body? It's not your body, it belongs to the whole universe. Don't take any credit for anything, it's not yours. If you operate in this way, you'll have peace of mind. Then, most difficult of all for many people is called brahmacharya. That means self-control, controlling the two major genetic directives that keep things going. Namely, propagation of the species, and secondly, eating and drinking. Streaming negative entropy on yourself so you continue to exist. If you can control these two factors, because these are energetic factors that put you connected with the external world, not the internal world. So these are and the one more is non-receiving of gifts. That means it's not that you shouldn't receive a gift, literally. It means you should not be obliged to anybody. Somebody gives you something, they make you a slave. So in Zimbabwe, where I come from, I was offered something like equivalent of $1 million American. I declined. I declined because it would have put me in infinite obligation to this person. They would have owned me. I would have been their slave. I didn't want that. So I declined it politely. Thank you very much for your offer, but I see the trap. And in any event, unasked, if things come to you within your life and flow, because there's a mechanism very powerful called thought. Every thought and intention carries through and condenses as the scenes, events, people, places, and resources in front of you, here and now. The mobilizing force is your own thought. Don't complain about what you have now. You ordered it. When DHL comes knocking on your door, don't say, no, I never ordered this. Yes, you ordered it. Please accept it. So every thought occurring in almost every second has to be monitored. Is it of the nature of tamas or rajas or sattva? If it's tamas and rajas, promote it to sattva. Play that game. Having a number of limited seconds in front of you, each one being a blank check, not being used before, put something useful in it and build up a bank balance in the unconscious mind, habit level. That is the process of yoga. All right. Now we come to the second principle, second step in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, a refinement of this. This is called niyama. And there you'll find the first principle is purity. External purity of the body and purity of the mind. How do you do this? You can revalue and say, it's not my mind. Don't register it to yourself. You can say, this belongs to the universe, this is my earth car, and that entity that sits within, that is the ultimate controlling entity, that entity is the internal occupant, and the external is something like a housing. And just like if you live in a house or anywhere, you'll clean the outside, paint it nicely, and you won't neglect the inside. Now the inside is made pure through Hatha Yoga asanas. And that is why we do it. We don't do it because we want to look good or beautiful. In fact, if you do the yoga asanas correctly, you're not achieving anything. Competitive yoga is off the table. You're expressing something. The health you already have, you're expressing. So yoga, in all its avenues, in all its methodologies, are expressions of the perfection you already have within you. Not something to get in the future. That creates anxiety. So it's something you have already, like the sun beaming. It doesn't want to achieve anything. It just shines. Whether you like it or not, it shines. And it shines on everyone. It doesn't discriminate who. So we have to be something like that. Something like a sun shining, beaming its fragrance everywhere, its sunlight, its energy everywhere. Having that generosity of spirit to do that. So purity is the first thing. And then cultivating an attitude of contentment. Contentment is equivalent to thankfulness. If we're not thankful, it means we didn't observe things correctly. Now many of this, all these people have heard before, but I'm not shy about repeating things 1,000,000 times. So I present you with a scenario. Sunny day, blue skies, two people walking in a park, the opportunity to hear the insects buzzing, smell the fragrance of the flowers, find out how the foot feels as it walks along the path, feel the pressure on the skin of the air, the rays of the sunshine on the face, the singing of the birds. All of these opportunities are there for two people walking in a park on a sunny day. Everything is fine, assuming you don't have hay fever. Anyway, so walking in the park with all these opportunities. But more than likely they're oblivious to the whole thing because they're talking about COVID or financial crisis or Brexit or whatever it is. Completely oblivious to the whole scene. So they couldn't appreciate what was there because they never observed it. You observe something correctly, then you have a sense of appreciation. If you have a sense of appreciation, thankfulness wells up inside you and creates a condition of contentment. Something you cannot change. Living in the present moment, happy and content, whatever the condition, because there's a poised place within you that you can resort to at any moment in time. Things are beautifully supplied to you. All the resources are supplied to you free of charge. Your food is digested free of charge. You don't digest your food. You eat your food. I don't think you put a spoon in afterwards and give it a stir. You're not digesting anything. Some entity lovingly does it second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. In our system, lifetime after lifetime, does it perpetually, doesn't ask for a salary, doesn't go on strike. What a beautiful lover. Pumps your heart continuously. Doesn't say, wait, I pumped about 1 beat per second for so many years, in my case, say 72 years. Pump that. I'm going off on holiday to the Bahamas tomorrow. Good luck. No, it doesn't say that. Lovingly does it. Repairs all your cells while you're sleeping, stays awake, solves all your problems and dreams. Staying awake, that entity is there. At least we should say thanks once or twice. Supposing you have this perpetual feeling of thankfulness, what will be your mental condition? It'll be content. So this is the principle of contentment. The next principle will be what is called tapasya, mortification, unfortunately, translated like that. but it's tapasya. Tapasya means heat caused by friction. Nobody likes change. If you ask the mind, please change, that means create another roadway. Let's say London, you disturb all the traffic and make a new roadway. Everybody gets upset. Nobody likes change. But yet you have to change. You have to carve out new neurological highways, as it were, in the brain. And this is called tapasya. That means changing your unconscious habit level. That means that the conscious mind has to be steered and directed like any rider of a horse or driver of a car. It has to be done consciously. We can't change the unconscious mind directly. We can only change the conscious mind, and whatever conscious impressions come get deposited in our fixed deposit account of the unconscious mind. So we make every effort to do that. So the Bhagavad Gita tells us that there are three aspects to this tapasya. One is physical, one is speech, and one is mind. Let's turn to the mind, cultivating the principle of silence. Not many people like silence. You travel with somebody in a car and they want to put the radio on. Or in conversation, what we call awkward silences. Nobody likes awkward silences. Why not? There's every merit in silence. And if you want to meditate, you have to cultivate stillness and silence, these two things. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is necessary. So this self-control, this tapasya, the energy that you have has to be steered in a disciplined way. And then there is something called study. Study is not what we classically mean by study. Study means that we know the significance of the truth that is contained and expressed in standard texts, which we call essentially scripture. For example, if you want to study Hatha Yoga, then you study these texts I've just mentioned, Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Giranda Samhita, belonging to the various agamas dedicated to Shiva. Is a conversation between what are called Shiva and Parvati, and this comes out as these two texts. And if you want to study any subject, don't go to the bookstore and get a book that has no bibliography or original references. Go to the original texts. Otherwise, you'll get misunderstandings about the whole thing and be misguided. But it also means practice of what's called japa. Japa means repetition of a protecting thought called a mantra. Mantra comes from the root manas, mind. Something that is a protecting thought against what? Against doubt, against fear, against temptation. Going through life using this. Then there is dissociating from the effects of all your actions and attributing them to the source of all energy. This source is in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras called Ishvara. Not something like a classical deity, but something like an ancient knower, an ancient teacher. Because when we know something or we think we know something, there's always a border beyond it. We can never know because there's something more to know, more to know, more to know. But if there's one entity where that border stops, that will be the source of everything, source of all knowledge. So this is called niyama. These are steps toward yoga practice in the same sense that Patanjali means it, which is concentration. Concentration sustained, like oil being poured from one vessel to another, is called dhyana or meditation. So far, we never mentioned it. So these are the preconditions. If you don't have any self-control, you can't do all the other things. And if you want to do pranayama, and you haven't done the earlier steps, such as brahmacharya, this will be dangerous. Because pranayama, motion of the lungs, this has a direct effect on the nervous system. And if you take this energy and steer it in a way that is tamasic or rajasic, these are the two aspects, components of nature, then whatever you do with the nerves, it'll upset them. But standard, simple regulation of breath is fine. But it's not essential, because when you elevate the mind, all the energies, all the prana and the aspects of prana, fivefold aspects, they all come in a great party, and the breath automatically goes into a state of what is called a chaka, or breath retention, by themselves, a state of awe, a state of rapture. No need to go like this about it. So the recommendation is that if you have no self-control, don't do this pranayama. But if you feel that the nerves are a little upset, then some steady breathing is okay. It's fine. Do that systematically. So now we've gone from yam to niyam. Asana we bypassed. We mentioned it earlier. Let's talk a little bit more about that. You see, the Zen Buddhists have a wonderful technique. Before they sit and meditate, they make a salutation. They feel that the seat itself is sacred, because you're going to sit on it and do something profound. And see, with every action, a mindfulness occurs. Just as these two people walking in the park have an opportunity for mindfulness, to be mindful of all the sensations one at a time. You can't do it all together. We have this great benefit that time is supplied to us in units. It's a way of stopping us from doing everything in one go. If you want to sing a song and you know 20 songs, you can't sing them all at once. You can see one note at a time. Imagine trying to sing. I know the capacity to sing is there, the knowledge of the songs are there, the understanding of the music is there, voice box is there, sound is there, sound waves are there. You should be able to sing it all in one go. Fortunately not. Nobody will buy your records like that. They say, what is this noise? We heard everything in one go. Oh, I see. We decided that for economy purposes, we put everything out in one go. It doesn't work like that. So we have all these series of units. Fortunately, the perception of time is with us. Perception of space is there also. It prevents us from that everything doesn't happen at the same time as time, and space says everything should not happen in the same place. In different places it can happen. So this is all at our disposal for all the cultivation of what we have. So let's go back now to niyama, this purification of the body. Why do we do hatha yoga asanas and kriyas and all of those things? It is to purify the body so that the body does not disturb us in meditation. And the only way to keep this housing clean, of course the outside we know how to keep clean, but when you clean the outside and clean the inside also, you realize how romantic the body is, because all of you, and me included, are carrying a septic tank along with us. They don't tell you it's at romance school. Two people meet over candlelight, stare into each other's molecules. We call them eyes. And how beautiful these eyes are. Wonderful molecules. Super. Ah, my heart, be still. I fell in love with molecules. See? And then when the sale is complete, two people get married after a few years. And the molecules, you get tired of those molecules and have a divorce. You see? It's not what we think. You take a small square section of skin, it is the delightful city and home of millions and billions of microbes crawling on your skin. But if you understood that, you'd never play along with the genetic game of life, and the whole human species would stop. So you're built to have this deception, to carry the game on. Fine. And then on side, I have to tell you, all kinds of things, mucus, blood, delightful things, intestines, all these things. And the funny part about it is, this is called Maya because every surgeon, every doctor knows this, and they still fall into the trap. Anyhow, that's all right. The human body is not what you think it is on the outside. So cleaning the body on the inside, maintaining your health is good. Maintaining the health on the inside, you need to do the kriyas and you need to do the asanas, because that's the only way to move the lymph around the body. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like the heart or the blood circulation. And so you have to do bending and twisting and moving that around. And the best way to do it is the yoga exercises. It has two functions. One is to keep your cooking section in good condition, all the assimilation that goes on with the food that you put in, knowing that this body is comprised of yesterday's pasta and vegan food. If you're a vegan, it's all right. And nothing more than that. Also, keeping the body clean. Most people are walking around in a morbid disease condition. So these people know, because I keep speaking about it, you see, what we can call the science of facial expression. Or you can read the neck and the head and so on and so forth and discover how much toxic material is in you or in your body, because the human body can be compared to a kind of bottle with a top on. And if you put yeast in there, no air, no sunshine, it ferments, and the fermented stuff will rise. And if you have a cork on the top, you can relieve it and the whole yeast will overflow. But unfortunately, we don't have something we can take off here in the skull. And so it compiles and expresses itself through the head and the neck. And then the poor waste material doesn't know what to do. And you have a resilient body that knows how to keep it in check as long as possible until something breaks down. So we have to learn to eliminate that material. What causes it is stress. And that is why the philosophy is necessary. A different outlook on life. Looking at life not in the usual way, but in a revalued way, giving it extra value, understanding that the whole of what we see is nothing more than shining waves belonging to the cosmos and belonging to the source, this oneness that sits behind it and expresses itself as the universe. We have to have that way of looking at it and thinking of it constantly. And this is where philosophy helps us and makes it practical. All right. So now we've covered several of the steps. We're now at pranayama. We go beyond pranayama. The next step will be what is called, we have several terms for it. I'll give you the first term. It's called pratyahara. Literally, it means a withdrawal of your attention from the senses inward. Normally, consciousness or energy is expressed outward. We have gateways of the senses toward the objects. The problem is the objects give us disturbance. And so, is there a scientific, systematic process that will take that consciousness and withdraw it and put it in a poised, creative, potential condition, ready to spring out? A kind of like a blackboard, you wipe everything off. Now you can be creative and start putting something on of your own. So I was in France recently, and we were doing a process over a week, Yoga Nidra workshop. And so Yoga Nidra means deep sleep. But in deep sleep, you don't know anything about it. You go into it being a fool, you wake up being a fool, nothing changes. So deep sleep is deep sleep, just a blank. Yoga Nidra, though, is different. Yoga Nidra says you can have the non-duality of an experience characterized as peace, and you can be fully aware of it. And that becomes an area for creative potential where you can express something from it. And the expression of it becomes concentration or dharana. That's the next step. So the technique of withdrawing that, and you'll see if you followed this guided meditation earlier, all these steps I was following. All right, so withdrawing and then creating. That's the next thing, dharana, concentration. Taking your awareness and attention. Attention is like a probe in the mind. It's like a lamp, it lights here, then it lights there, and lights there. And concentration strengthens the mind. Most people don't really have it. And it starts with your working, waking life. Somebody in a stressful condition, you ask, why are you stressed? I have so many things to do. How many things? Oh, 101 things. Well, it's a trap question because I want you to say, no, there's only one thing. And then another thing. And then another thing. One thing at a time. That is the benefit of having space and time. You only have one thing to do. Do it well, and then go to the next thing, and the next thing. If you don't do it like that, then your concentration is not there. See, if we say, let's make some tea, there are two ways of doing it. You can take a tea bag and throw it into a pot, chuck some water in, and pour it down your throat, mindlessly. Or you can do it like the Japanese do it. They do a tea ceremony. Every movement is mindful. Every movement has meaning. It is almost a religious ritual being done with full concentration. Supposing you were able to do all your activities in this way, and your activities are innumerable. Breathing is an activity, thinking is an activity, walking is an activity, working is an activity. Sitting is an activity. Sleeping, maybe not so much, because there's no conscious awareness attached to it. So all these activities are opportunities to get the maximum benefit by putting all your energy and attention into that single moment and deriving the best from it. Swami Vivekananda was confronted by the atheist Ingersoll, who said, the trouble with you spiritual people is you don't know how to enjoy life. And his reply was, on the contrary, I know how to squeeze every drop of the orange of life. I get appreciation in every moment. I get an elevation in every moment. I get joy in every moment. And don't think that a spiritual person has a face with a chin by his knees, looking so serious. No. Swami Vivekananda will say, this is not spirituality, more than likely it's dyspepsia, stomach trouble. So, all right, that's fine. We continuously connect and tune into life as a series of beautiful moments that we can tune into with great joy and delight. Learn the art of doing that. That's called yoga. Now you come to a continuous flow of this, where only one thought remains in the mind. And dharana, concentration, will not be fixing the mind on one thing. It'll be taking the mind on a journey, a delightful journey. Shuffling through the library of all your memories, find some scene that was delightful for you or an event that elevated your spirit and your mood. Take it, whether it was a mountain scenery or a river or an ocean, or whether it is something else. Take the mind on a delightful journey. Come on, let's go. With an internal commentary running, because we're all talking to ourselves. Even when you're talking to somebody else, you're listening to yourself. And when there's nobody, you're still talking to yourself and listening to yourself. So steer the mind in this way, canalize all your mental activity until you take a flight above the clouds Dhyana or meditation is when only one thought exists in the mind. And that continuous thought, impression in the mind, when it's sustained, even when that thought goes, this is number 8, it's called samadhi, a superconscious state. And the yoga and Sankhya philosophy will tell us that the mind has 3 states. Unconscious mind, where most of your activity occurs. Conscious mind, probably about 5%. And the superconscious mind, where you get all your inspiration and where the mind opens up in a beautiful way in stages and levels of consciousness, step by step, like an opening flower all the time. This is put in the language of the yogis as chakras. That is symbolized as opening flowers. It's not that you have flowers in your spine, by the way. Not like that. It's a symbolic language of the yogis. Understanding the openness of a flower and the closedness. Flowers open, open, open. In this way, they symbolize levels of consciousness. It is nonsense to say, I'm looking at you, your 5th chakra is out. Where did you get this idea from? It's not a center of energy. It's a level of consciousness. Layers upon layers of the mind opening up. These are called, in the symbolic language of the yogis, chakras. That's all. You can just do the same thing, climbing up a mountain, different terraces there, same thing, same concept. Progress upward and evolution. And at every level, things become more expansive, more truthful, and more subtle. Until ultimately, this yoga as a goal takes place, where this separateness goes. And eventually you come to what is called kaivalya in the yoga philosophy, this oneness, this unity of experience. Does it end there? No. Like a fountain, you'll be obliged to work for the welfare of the whole of humanity. All beings, you'll have compassion. You'll be like the great Buddha, who got his enlightenment and couldn't stop there. He had to share it with everybody. And he was a light. The original English books on Buddha's life are called The Light of Asia, put in that language. So, this is yoga, and whenever you do any form of yoga, understand it has to be within this context. And when you do this, this is the method of how to be a yogi, which was the topic. How to be a yogi in your working, waking life. Not running away to a cave or anything like that, or a monastery, but engaging fully in life with a sense of adventure, knowing that you have the skill to get around any obstacle. Don't shy away from it. The example I give you is something like this Olympic stadium nearby, Olympic village. Supposing you're selected for the Olympics, and they say, please, will you do the hurdling? And you say, yes, I can do it. Only one condition was that, please, can you take the hurdles away? That won't be a very good game. You have to learn the art of running at a certain pace, stretching the leg out, the other one tucked in, not knocking the obstacle over, outrunning the other person because you're running fluidly, smoothly, because you've been training. It requires training. Like any endeavor, it requires training. And this training is called yoga as a process. We're all yogis. Everyone is a yogi, whether they know it or not. So thank you. That's the end of this talk. Thank you for your attention.